The hotel door opened at 11:47 p.m. Daniel Reed froze. The woman standing in the hallway was the last person on earth he expected to see in Tokyo. His CEO. She was barefoot, still wearing the black suit she had worn at the airport that morning. Her eyes were red, and in her hand was a small photograph of Daniel's 8-year-old daughter. "I need you to come with me," she whispered. Daniel stared at the photograph. "Where?" Her voice broke. "To the hospital." 16 hours earlier, Daniel had been standing in a conference room in Chicago, trying not to look nervous. Across the table sat Victoria Hale, the 39-year-old CEO of Hailstone Logistics, a woman known for turning failing companies into profitable ones. She slid a folder toward him. "Tokyo," she said. "For days. I need someone I can trust." Daniel looked at the folder, then at the plane ticket beside it. "Me?" Victoria nodded. Daniel was a maintenance supervisor, not an executive. He had spent 11 years fixing warehouse equipment, solving problems nobody noticed until something stopped working. He was also a single father. His daughter, Emma, had been born 6 months before her mother died from complications after surgery. Since then, Daniel had built his entire life around one promise. Emma would never feel alone. "I can't be gone long," he said. "I know." Victoria's answer was unusually gentle. "Your flight leaves tonight." Daniel hesitated. Then he saw the number on the contract. The Tokyo facility had a serious mechanical problem, and if it wasn't fixed before an international inspection, the company could lose a major client. So Daniel kissed Emma goodbye, packed one suitcase, and boarded a plane. He expected Victoria to be waiting in Japan. She wasn't. Instead, a company driver met him at the airport and delivered him to the hotel. There was another surprise waiting. A note on his bed. "Fix the problem. Don't ask questions. VH." Daniel frowned. Something about it felt wrong. The next morning, he arrived at the Tokyo distribution center and discovered the problem was far worse than anyone had told him. A conveyor system had been shutting down randomly for weeks. 3 engineers had already failed to identify the cause. Daniel spent 6 hours crawling beneath machines, tracing cables, and examining worn components. Finally, he found it. Someone had installed a cheap replacement part where a safety sensor should have been. It wasn't an accident. Daniel photographed it. Then his phone rang. It was Emma's school. His heart dropped. She had collapsed during recess. Daniel couldn't breathe. He immediately called Victoria. No answer. Again. Nothing. Then he called the company office. Nobody knew where she was. For the first time since arriving in Japan, Daniel stopped thinking about the company. He booked the earliest flight home. But at the airport, security stopped him. His passport had been flagged because the company had changed his return itinerary. Daniel stared at the screen in disbelief. Why would they do that? The employee couldn't tell him. Then Daniel noticed an envelope inside his luggage. He hadn't packed it. Inside was a photograph of Victoria standing beside an elderly Japanese man. On the back were 3 words. "Ask about Hiro." Daniel recognized the man. He had seen his name in the Tokyo facility's old maintenance records. Hiro Tanaka had been the company's original engineering consultant, and he had died 8 years earlier. Daniel felt a chill run through him. This wasn't about a broken conveyor. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, Emma woke up in a hospital room. She wasn't seriously injured. She had fainted from dehydration and exhaustion. But when the nurse asked who should be called, Emma gave a name that surprised her. Victoria. The nurse found Victoria's number in the emergency contact information Daniel had submitted before leaving. And that was when everything became clear. Victoria hadn't ignored Daniel's calls. She had been on a plane, flying to Tokyo, because she had discovered something terrifying about her own company. The defective safety part Daniel found had been deliberately installed. Someone inside Hailstone Logistics had been manipulating maintenance reports for years, quietly cutting safety costs and hiding failures. Hiro Tanaka had discovered it 8 years ago, and before he died, he had left evidence. Evidence Victoria had only recently found. She had sent Daniel to Tokyo because he was the only person she trusted to recognize mechanical fraud. But she hadn't told him the truth, because she didn't know whom to trust inside her own company. When Victoria appeared at Daniel's hotel that night, she finally confessed. "Hiro was my father." Daniel stared at her. He had never heard that name connected to Victoria. She looked down at the photograph of Emma. He was trying to expose the people who were stealing from the company. They destroyed his reputation before he could finish. Daniel understood. Victoria hadn't sent him to Japan to fix a machine. She had sent him there to finish something her father started. But there was one thing she hadn't expected. Daniel had discovered that the fraud wasn't being committed by some distant executive. It was being covered up by Victoria's closest business partner, the man who had helped her rebuild Hailstone after her father's death, the man she trusted more than anyone. Victoria looked devastated. What do I do? Daniel thought about Emma, about his years repairing broken machines, about how sometimes the most dangerous damage was the damage you couldn't see. You don't protect the company, he said quietly. You protect the people. The next morning, Victoria walked into a board meeting with Daniel beside her. She presented everything: the forged reports, the hidden payments, the altered safety records, and the original evidence from Hero. Her business partner was arrested within weeks. But Victoria didn't walk away untouched. The scandal cost her millions. Several investors left. The company nearly collapsed, and Daniel returned to Chicago without a promotion. He went back to his old job. At least, that was what he expected. 3 months later, Victoria visited him at the warehouse. She wasn't wearing her CEO's suit. She carried a cardboard box. Inside was an old engineering notebook. Hero's notebook. Victoria handed it to Daniel. My father wrote one thing in here that I didn't understand until now. Daniel opened the final page. A single sentence was written in faded ink. A good engineer doesn't just repair what is broken. He makes sure nobody gets hurt by it again. Daniel smiled. What are you going to do with it? Victoria looked toward the warehouse workers. Build the company differently. Then she handed Daniel a second envelope. Inside was an offer. Not for a corner office. Not for a ridiculous salary. It was for a new position, Director of Safety and Employee Training. Daniel looked at her. You're hiring me? Victoria smiled. No, I'm asking you to help me make sure I never need another hero. Daniel accepted. But the most important change happened at home. That evening, Emma ran into the kitchen and hugged him. Did you fix Japan? Daniel laughed. No. He knelt beside her. Someone helped me understand that fixing things isn't always about machines. Emma tilted her head. Then what is it about? Daniel looked at his daughter. People. Years later, Daniel would remember that strange night in Tokyo whenever life became difficult. The hotel door, Victoria's frightened face, the photograph of his daughter, the secrets, the betrayal, and the choice that changed everything. Because sometimes life sends you somewhere you never wanted to go. Not to reward you, not to make you rich, but to place you in the exact moment when someone needs the kind of person you've spent your whole life becoming. And sometimes the greatest repair isn't fixing a broken machine. It's helping broken people believe they can build something better.